All right, good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition Radio and Podcast, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, where today we're going to have some fun talking about men's health and men's hormones. We've spent a lot of time over the last few weeks talking a lot about women's health, women's hormones, all different phases. And I really, as I was kind of going through and determining what I wanted to talk about this week, I thought, really this is the time to dig into what it looks like for men, what it looks like as far as hormonal balance for men, what to look for if there's some imbalance, and how to balance it, and why it's so important, because it really is super important to have balanced hormones for both sexes, obviously. So, but as always, we start the show with gratitude, because gratitude can change the world. I truly believe that. I think it's important to, for myself anyway, right, to go to bed in gratitude. Sometimes I just fall asleep, but I try to go to bed saying my prayers, being grateful for all the things that happened in that day and all the lessons that I learned and continue to learn, and then wake up and do the same thing. So, what am I grateful for is this weekend. Sort of the same thing I was grateful for last week, is that I got to go to a conference. I'm a super conference nerd, right? I love going and learning and, meeting all the people, and I always bring home these really amazing nuggets. And this is the stuff that helps me to, stay on the cutting edge, keep my mind open to the new science that's developing, to the new breakthroughs that are coming through in functional nutrition and functional medicine. Was able to see Mark Hyman speak, which was really super cool. If you've not seen him speak, or if you don't know who that is, he's one of the first to really bring functional medicine to the forefront. It's been around for quite some time, but he is one of the founders of the Institute for Functional Medicine. He's got a lot of books. He's just a super smart dude. So was able to see him speak. That was a first. And then many others who have just these amazing therapies and these amazing practices where they're really helping people to just be well, right? So whether they're struggling with chronic disease, whether they are just looking to optimize, helping people understand their bodies, which is my ultimate goal, is help people understand their bodies so they have, hey Brandon, they have the rest of their life to where they can understand what it is. Okay, this is my body. Now I know what it is I need to do to help to balance it. And the body's dynamic. It's always going to change. But knowing our body, knowing what it's telling us, knowing its signals, knowing all of these things that help us to manage as we move through life. These are the things that are really important. And so amazing therapies out there. The conference was really all about longevity. And I think for me, when it's not even about longevity as much as it is about living well for as long as we have, and supporting mitochondria, supporting cellular health. All of these things are super important as we age to decrease the risk of disease and, of course, death, which is going to happen. It's always going to happen, but that's okay. We want to live well as long as we're here. We want to make sure that we're walking and thinking and able to speak and do and serve while we are here for as long as we're here. So anyway, that's what I'm grateful for. It was a really great conference. Lots of good stuff. We'll probably do some shows regarding some of the things that I learned. So, but for this, male hormones are such an important part also to longevity, or to anti-aging, or to aging well. And what we're finding so often is, as with women, we're finding that hormones in men can get thrown off and be so wonky, and we don't understand why. We've got men who are struggling with depression, men who are struggling with loss of muscle mass, even osteoporosis, and they're like, why is this happening? And so I want to dig in a little bit to kind of get into the basics, and then what we can do to help to manage that. And so there are multiple androgenic hormones. testosterone being sort of the main one for men. But then we also have DHEA, we've got androstenedione, we've got dihydrotestosterone, which is sort of, if we hear about that male pattern baldness, right? Dihydrotestosterone, if it's too elevated, then it can cause hair loss. So we'll talk more about those and what all of those mean. But we will get into some strategies and understanding of what we can do to help to balance those. And so, I think most of us understand the role of testosterone, but I think that what we don't always understand is when testosterone is not optimal, what happens to us at that point. And so, testosterone, let me kind of get back to let's do this, because I think that this understanding the pathways of testosterone is really important, because we have so many people, but so many men who are on statins, that as these statins start to take hold and reduce cholesterol, it's also impacting hormone health. So if we're looking at if we look at these pathways, we have these pathways where all of these hormones are coming off of one main hormone, which is pregnenolone. So what we've got up here, we've got pregnenolone, and then we have DHEA and your estrogens and your testosterones and your androgenic hormones and all of those that come off of here. What is above pregnenolone, though? Pregnenolone is our master hormone. Above pregnenolone is cholesterol. And so we have to keep in mind that if we're impacting cholesterol, and cholesterol can be impacted by statins, it can be impacted by unhealthy fats, by high sugar intake, by stress. All of these things can impact it. But if we're taking a statin that's inhibiting cholesterol production, then what we're doing is we're inhibiting all of these steroid hormones down the line. And so what then happens, cholesterol is so important for brain function, for cellular integrity, as well as for hormone production. And so we have to, if any of you out there are struggling and you're on a statin, it might be something to look at. There are also certain epigenetic variants that make you less likely to do well on a statin. Another thing that I'm going to say, so if you don't know who Dr. Steven Sinatra is, he's a cardiologist. I would call him a functional cardiologist. He's got an amazing book, and I believe the book is The Great Cholesterol Myth. I'm pretty sure that's the book. I have several of them, but I think it's that one. Anyway, so it gives a really detailed outline of cholesterol and the importance of cholesterol, and then of course how statins can impact it and how to reduce your cholesterol naturally and that kind of thing. And so one of the things that he says as far as cholesterol is concerned, particularly for women, is that statins make us stupid. For men, though, what he says, and this is his data, what he says is there is potentially a place for statins, but that usually is when a man has already had an event. So it's not really a good idea for women, but for men, if they have already had some kind of event, cardiovascular event, then statins may be necessary. So it's higher, of course, than we want it to be, but we have this, we're sitting in this place where statins are like in the water. And I even know someone who thinks that they should be in the water, right? I think that's hugely problematic. But we have a little bit of cholesterol elevation, and they're like, okay, well, you need a statin. What's that going to do? We don't think about the downstream effects, right? And we don't think about, how it's going to impact us in our muscle health, and our brain health, and our cellular health, and of course our hormone health. So super important. Here's a story too. This is in my own family. My dad was put on a statin. What am I going to say, right? I mean, he's got to make his own decisions, but I also know his genetics, and his genetics is such that, as mine, is such that he typically will not do well with statins. And so interestingly, a couple of months ago, he came to me and said he's been having a ton of pain in his feet, and they determined it was the statin. So think about that too. Think about if you are on a statin and you're having pain, could it be the statin? A lot of times we don't put two and two together, and I think it's really important to put those things together. So if it is the statin that's creating the problem for you, what are the other problems it's creating? If you happen to be one of those genotypes that don't do well with statins, what else can you take, maybe whether it's pharmaceutical or if it's natural, that can help you to manage your cholesterol? Well, we have to remember, cholesterol is not the enemy. Cholesterol is natural. It's produced by the liver. We're supposed to have it. Cholesterol is, the cholesterol in our food, it has a very, very small impact on our serum cholesterol. What has an impact on serum cholesterol is going to be our liver and our liver health, and high sugar, high stress, eating fats that are like our processed fats, margarines and, these really unhealthy oxidized fats, canola oil, which is all over the place. When we're told to eat a healthy fat, people say, oh yeah, eat canola oil. This is conventional medicine. We're like, it's so inflammatory. It's so highly processed and so inflammatory. It's terrible stuff. So stay away from canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil. All of those things are super inflammatory. Those are the things that are going to impact liver health, that are going to impact cholesterol and increase oxidized cholesterol. So I'm going to stop there because I could really dive deep into the whole cholesterol issue. And I have already done that. So you can look at one of the other shows where we talk about it. But it's an important topic, and it's an important topic for you men to understand how cholesterol impacts your hormones. So keep that in mind, and let's see, what else do we want to talk about? So I think let's go ahead and move into what we see. What we see more often than we should is what we call andropause, right? So we've been talking a lot about women in menopause, but men can go through hormonal changes as well. Is it natural? I don't think so. I mean, not really. And I say that because really andropause is a drop in testosterone, which usually happens due to unhealthy lifestyle. It's just what it is. And so, yeah, if you've had a life that's been, pretty unhealthy, with lots of unhealthy food and lots of alcohol and lots of sugar and lots of high carbohydrate and not enough protein and not enough movement and not enough sleep, not enough stress mitigation, right? Then your testosterone is going to drop. And what's going to happen when you move into andropause, we have what we often see as that belly, right? So we have this belly, and it's got this adipose, this visceral adipose tissue that is really, really inflammatory and problematic. And so that also increases estrogen. So we have these fat cells that we, at one time just thought, well, fat's fat, it doesn't do anything, it's just there. Well, they're very biologically active. And they act kind of like an endocrine system to a degree, but they will produce estrogen. So the more adipose tissue that we have, the more, especially that visceral tissue, the more estrogen we're going to have. Now, what happens also is, and we talked a little bit about this last week, but we have an enzyme called aromatase. What happens when we have an unhealthy lifestyle and all of the high carbohydrates and all the things that I just said, is the aromatase enzyme is more active than it should be. And so what it does is it takes testosterone and aromatizes it, or converts it to estrogen. And so what we see very often is men going through or struggling with this andropause, and they're depressed and they're not building muscle. And again, going back to all of these things that I've already said. And then they go in to get testosterone injections. And what does it do? It doesn't increase their testosterone, it increases their estrogen. So it's this fascinating conversion that happens, but it's not supposed to happen. And so if it is happening, that's why if you are on testosterone replacement therapy, it's not working, or even before you even go in to get testosterone replacement therapy, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but you got to test all your hormones. You got to know where your estradiol is. You got to know, where your other androgenic hormones are. You have to understand what's going on, and if you're being impacted by xenoestrogens. And so xenoestrogens, if you don't know this already, so they're essentially they're synthetic estrogens. They are estrogens that are created by pesticides, herbicides, toxins in the environment. What are the toxins that we're using on our skin? Cologne, lotion, hair, shampoo, conditioner, what we're cleaning our clothes with, right? And so it's not everything, but it's most things. It's most of the conventional stuff that we have in our, at the regular grocery store and that kind of thing. They're full of xenoestrogens, and what they do is they're these the body sees them as estrogens, and they bind really, really tightly to estrogen receptor sites, and doesn't allow our own natural estrogen to do its job. So this can be super problematic with women, where elevated estrogens can create lots and lots of PMS and PMDD and all kinds of stuff, right? But the same with men. Right? So too much estrogen and on top of aromatizing testosterone, no wonder we have this place where we have, depression and, what is it, what's the commercial that I see all the time, the HIMS, where HIMS, right? So where, all you have to do is call them and they'll give you your testosterone, or they'll give you your antidepressant meds. Why don't we find out why? Right? Why don't we find out what's going on before we just go and give people a bunch of meds, especially just over the phone, which can create even more problems, right? These things aren't the answer. They can help in the short term potentially, but for the long term, we need to understand the why behind it. Is it always testosterone? No, but I think there are a lot of cases where it is. And so understanding that, well, I guess what I was going to say is, what if you don't even need testosterone replacement therapy? What if you have the ability to control all of these areas of life, and then you start to create and produce your own natural, innate testosterone? This is the goal. Now, if you still can't get it up where you want it to be, or you still need a little help, then you look at it. You look at maybe doing some HRT, but you gotta look at your estrogen. You gotta look at all of them. You gotta look at your detoxification, right? So we can also have SNPs or epigenetic variants that inhibit detox or inhibit proper detox, and there are lots and lots of SNPs that are involved in detoxification, but some of them can impact hormone detoxification, and so in women and in men again, and if we're not detoxifying our estrogen well or properly or enough, and it just builds, then it's just going to continue to create problems. So understanding, as much as you can about that is really key, and then you can start to make decisions on where you need to go with therapy or with lifestyle modifications, right? So we have other androgenic hormones that play a big role for both men and women, but men specifically. We look at DHEA, which is a precursor to testosterone. It's really important, and we can measure it in lab work. And what we find a lot of times, if DHEA is low, we've got fatigue and depression, kind of the same thing, because it is that precursor to testosterone. And so it's produced by the adrenal glands, and as we age, it does tend to decrease. But what if we can optimize it? We can optimize it. So then we have androstenedione. It is another precursor to testosterone and to estrogen, and super important to hormones. And remember this too. I know I said this the last several weeks, but remember what hormones are. Hormones are communicators. They are what tell the body in it's not the only thing, but in large part, what it's supposed to be doing. So we have our whole endocrine system, our Pituitary, our thyroid, our adrenals, our testes, our ovaries, all of these things are communicators and tells the rest of the body what to do. So if the hormones are not functioning properly, then their communication is not as it should be. And so things go wonky, right? And that's what we're seeing. So we also have, and I think I said this a little while ago, but DHT. So DHT is what we find, if we're starting to see male pattern baldness. DHT can be elevated. It also can play a role in prostate health. So we want to make sure that DHT is in line. Let's see. So I think let's talk a little bit about diet. And I think diet specifically related to cholesterol, which of course is related to hormone health. I talked about what not to eat, right? So we don't want to eat the processed foods, the unhealthy fats, the high sugar, the high carbohydrate. If you're already struggling with excess weight and maybe some low testosterone, staying away from grains, I think, is a really good idea. I think grains may have a place for some people, but I think if you're trying to manage, you got to keep your carbs pretty low. And so grains are not going to be beneficial for you as far as I'm concerned. So good healthy fat, right? Avocado, olive oil. Don't cook with olive oil. Cook with avocado oil and eat avocados and eat nuts and eat seeds. And, raw is good. Something that I've started doing, I get so tired of buying nut milk and paying so much for it. And what I know is they add a bunch of additional stuff in it. It's more water than actual nuts. But what I thought was that you always had to strain it. And for some of you may not care about this, but I don't care because some of you might, because I think it's super cool. But you don't, if you get softer nuts, you don't have to strain them. You just mix them. You just blend them. So what I've been doing is I take pecans, raw walnuts, and hemp seeds. And so I will soak my pecans and my walnuts, and then I will put those in a blender, probably like a cup or 2 cups, depends on how thick you want it. Put it in the Vitamix, add a bunch of hemp seeds, that thickens it up. And you just let it run for a little bit, and then you've got milk. And it's still nuts, it's just you got a nut milk, and you can make it as thick or as thin as you want. And so it lasts, what I make, it lasts about a week. So I'm using that in my coffee. I use it to make my cereal, which is usually, nuts, a little bit of protein. I don't do grains hardly ever, so it's not really cereal, but it's, it's kind of my fun little cereal that I make that's, gut healthy. Put all my gut healthy nutrients in it, all my high fiber stuff. And all of those are the things that kind of make me happy because it kind of takes me back. It's like I'm eating cereal, but everything in there is high fat, high protein, low carb, right? It really is a nice satiating. I mean, I eat twice a day typically. I'll eat at 11 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and that is those are really great meals for me that keep me satiated and I know are filling me with all the good stuff. So good healthy fats. If you want to do something like that, you can add your olive oil to that, kind of cover up the flavor a little bit. But when you're using olive oil, use as much olive oil as you want. Make sure it's good quality and make sure you're not cooking with it. So that's why I use avocado oil, because it can take the high heat a lot better. For those who do well with saturated fat, and there are many who do and many who don't, but you can use coconut oil. So we want to then make sure that we're getting good, healthy fish. Not everybody likes fish. If you don't like fish, take fish oil capsule. It's so important to have this marine-based DHA and EPA. There is a form of algae that is high in EPA and DHA. It's the only plant-based form that is, but you're not getting good EPA and DHA if you're getting your omegas from plant-based sources, flax, hemp, chia seeds. Those are all great and they're high in fiber and they're beneficial, but they're not giving you the omega-3s because they are ALA and they have to be converted to EPA and DHA, which is a very inefficient conversion. So you got to eat fish. You got to take your fish oil supplement. You can't get your fish oil supplement from somewhere like Costco because I don't trust it. It smells fishy to me. If it smells fishy, it's likely oxidized. Then you're just it's not doing you any good, or it's even damaging, right? Is it carcinogenic? Potentially. Is it inflammatory? Yes. So you're taking what is supposed to be anti-inflammatory and creating an inflammatory product from it. So good quality, good, you got to get it from a good source. You got to know who you're getting it from. This is why I always use professional lines, because they have the data and I know that I trust their products. So anyway, let's see what else here. I think we want to make sure that we hit on the fact that low fat is not okay. We don't want low fat food. Usually if something is low fat, especially if it is naturally high fat, like coconut oil or coconut milk, or something like that, where you just take out the fat, you're taking out all of the goodness. You got to have the fat there. The fat is important. And if they're doing that, usually there's added sugar. So take yogurt, for instance. And I'm not a fan of, dairy-based yogurt at all. But if you are a yogurt person, Greek or otherwise, and they're giving you low fat, usually they're then adding in sugar, because the fat is what gives it flavor. And so they have to add in sugar in order to balance out that flavor. So it's not doing you any good. So really, just staying away from the processed foods, the high processed foods is just best. Always read your ingredients, know what you're looking for. This is sort of the key to a lot of my conversations with my clients who are trying to do the right things, but it's always teaching, always read your ingredients. Know what you're getting, know what is beneficial and not, and know that marketing works. This is not a good thing, right? I mean, it is a good thing. Marketing is important, but it also works. So there are a lot of things out there that we're told are good because marketing works when they're really not. So we've got to know, we've got to be aware of what actually is beneficial and what is not. So let's see. Some of the key ingredients that are super important for men and for testosterone balance, estrogen balance, DHEA balance, all of those things. So antioxidants, glutathione, master antioxidant. Some of us can have epigenetic SNPs where we don't have enough glutathione, which is super important for detoxification. So we can supplement with glutathione, which sometimes is good and sometimes is not. We can also supplement with N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, or some people call it NAC. And that is a precursor to glutathione and can be really great for building glutathione and supporting detoxification. But there are other things that are really great for supporting detoxification that are going to help with hormone balance. So understanding your genetic makeup is important, or your epigenetic makeup. That's a really great idea. But also, the dandelion and the silymarin and those things that are great for supporting the liver and detox. Vitamin C has the shortest half-life of any other nutrient. And so, it's a great one if you're taking it, which is probably a good idea. Take it throughout the day, so you're keeping pretty consistent levels throughout the day, and taking a good form it's going to be beneficial for you. Selenium's great for the thyroid, but it's also great for hormone balance. You can get selenium in Brazil nuts. So it's a great antioxidant. So you eat a couple of Brazil nuts a day, and it really helps to balance the thyroid, and it helps to balance hormone levels. CoQ10 is such an important antioxidant. So we hear typically about CoQ10 with cardiovascular health, which yes is key. But really what CoQ10 is mitochondrial health. Mitochondria is the foundation of health, right? It's the foundational piece, little organism in each cell, and there might be hundreds or thousands of mitochondria per cell. And our heart has more mitochondria than any other organ in the body. Actually, I think it's the heart and the brain. But, the heart's always working, it's always pumping. So it's always got to have energy, and it's always got to go, go, go. And so going back to taking statins impact the mitochondria. So that's why they always say if you're taking a statin, then you want to also take CoQ10. They have to go hand in hand. I mean, this is there's no black and white about this. There are only a few things that I'm super black and white about, and this is one of them. If you're on a statin, you have to be on CoQ10, and a good quality CoQ10. It's a fat-soluble antioxidant, and it's super supportive, but it's super supportive of all of the mitochondria. I take CoQ10 on a regular basis. I take it for my brain health, but I also take it for all of my mitochondria. I also know that I have cardiovascular disease in my family. So I do lots of things to try to mitigate, which is the amazing thing about, doing our labs and understanding our history and looking at our genetics, is we can mitigate what could happen. And kind of getting back to it, I sort of skipped over this, but if you haven't watched this before or heard me before talk about epigenetics, epigenetics is all lifestyle. So our epigenome are locations that sit on top of genes and are the regulators of gene expression. So the epigenome is impacted by sleep, by stress, by food, by exercise, by toxins in the environment and toxins in our, our head, as we had this negative self-talk. So all of these things that play a role in that our lifestyle that help to regulate gene expression. So in my family, and Brandon, you know this, it's my brother, we have cardiovascular disease, we have autoimmune disease, we have stroke, we have diabetes, we have some cancer. So this is where, where it's fun for me, because I take all of this information and I put it into, I put it all together. So I do this for myself, I do this for my clients, but you put it all together. So then you start to say, okay, these are the things that are going on. These are what your labs say. This is what your current lifestyle is. This is your history. Let's put it all together so we can create a plan for moving forward, so we can mitigate what our history is. Just because there's diabetes in my family doesn't mean I have to be diabetic. Just because there's cardiovascular disease and stroke in my family doesn't mean I have to have cardiovascular disease or have a stroke, right? So there are lots of things to do to help with longevity, right? But also help to optimize the time that we're here. Fiber. So I was talking about this a little while ago. A couple of things that I have sort of, I experiment on everything all the time. It's kind of what's fun about it. But I was purchasing a fiber supplement, which a lot of people do, especially if you're not regular, right? There's a problem with that, but fiber helps to pull out estrogens. It helps to, to keep a gut healthy. It helps to feed our microbiome. It does all of these amazing things, but you want to have good, healthy fiber, and it can help balance weight, manage weight and that kind of thing. So I finally was looking at the ingredients of this fiber supplement. It's just a powder that I was taking. I thought, why the hell am I buying this when I can make it? So that's what I started doing. And it's amazing. It's really great stuff. I can feel the difference. It's pretty fascinating, actually. But all of these different things that I know are beneficial for me, some of these things that I put in, one of those things, green banana flour, for some people can create bloating. But green banana flour supports our short chain fatty acids, which supports our microbiome, right? I ground up flaxseed. So I buy whole flaxseed and I grind it periodically. So I make enough that lasts a couple of weeks, and that's it, because I don't want the oil and the seeds to oxidize. So, there's flax, there's psyllium husk, there's chia seeds, there's green banana flour. I put in some marshmallow root, right? It's an herb. It's great for the GI. So all of these different things that you can do that that are inexpensive, and I add it to my cereal that's not really cereal, right? And that's what I eat. And it's great, and it feels good, and I love it. So just because, we don't have to always go buy all of these different supplements. I think that they have their place without a doubt, but just eat food, right? We have great food, and some of these things we can just eat on a regular basis, and it's better than anything else, and it's better than spending money on a supplement. Okay. So, we can't not talk about exercise. Exercise promotes testosterone. Heavy weighted exercise promotes testosterone. And so we have to move, we have to lift weights, we have to, cardio is supportive of cardiovascular health, but cardio is not the end all be all. Doing a little bit of cardio is great. It's fine. I do it. But when I'm doing it, I'm mixing it in with the weight bearing exercise as well. So I do CrossFit. Some people like yoga. Some people like kickboxing. I'm going to be doing some kickboxing soon. I'm super excited about that. I love kickboxing. But for me, it's about kind of doing it all at the same time. So I'm lifting weights and I'm increasing my cardio at the same time. And so you can, and especially, for me in CrossFit, you can do it at the same time because you're doing all of these different movements at the same time. And you want to get to a point, this was part of the conference that I went to last weekend, is getting to the point to where you're so out of breath that you can't talk. This is the what creates autophagy, which is cell die-off, right? In a good way, right? We want cells that are no longer needed, that are at the end of their life. We want that autophagy. We want the cell die-off. We don't want our healthy cells to die off, but that's not what happens in this, right? So we want to clear out the toxins, and we want to clear out the dead cells and the debris and the stuff that gets built up. And that's what exercise to the point of not being able to talk for a period of time, whether it's a minute to 4 minutes, give or take. This is what can really help us to create, to build cellular health. And so it's the weight bearing exercise, really getting as heavy as you can. That's the stuff that's going to help to build testosterone. And I'm going to say this for women too. Women are taking testosterone supplements all the time, or I say supplements, whether it's the lotion or the pellets or the injections, right? We're doing this testosterone replacement therapy when what if, and it's not always the case, but what if if we did more weight bearing exercise, really heavy weights, that's all we needed. Maybe not, right? And so who was asking me, or she it was really cute, but she does a lot of cardio, and she was doing really light weights. And what she told me was, I was doing 2.5 pounds, and then I got it to 5 pounds, but I don't want to go up too heavy because I don't want to bulk up. It's not going to happen, right? Bulking up is not going to happen, especially for women, unless you're taking steroids, right? It just really doesn't happen. We've got some, pretty bulky women. That's not true. We have bigger women because that's how we're built. But to think that we're going to bulk up like men do, it's just the likelihood is pretty low unless you got to work really, really hard at it. So for someone like her, for someone like me, I don't bulk up. I have some muscle, and I lift really heavy. I lift as heavy as I can. And this is about as bulky as I'll probably ever get, right? So we have to lift heavy. It's important for longevity. It's important for muscle health. It's really, really important for bone health. We have to lift heavy. So don't be afraid of that. If you're a woman out there listening to this, get out there and do what you can to lift as heavy as you can. Another thing that is kind of this really cool idea of exercise snacks that I think is super cool. So often we are just sitting at our desk. It's what we do these days. And Brandon, my brother, he's a welder. He's a welder inspector. And nowadays he sits a lot in a truck. So these are not things that are conducive to a healthy lifestyle. It's not conducive to healthy testosterone levels. It's not conducive to healthy weight management. So what we can do, and what I'm trying to start doing, we might have to set an alarm, might have to, whatever it takes for you to remember, but get up and do a minute of squats, or get up and do a minute of, jumping jacks or high knees or something like that. Do it for a full minute as hard as you can, and then get back to your work. And do it every 45 minutes or do it every hour. Even if you did it 2 or 3 or 4 times throughout the day, it's something, it's movement, it gets you going. It's not the same as good, solid, workout. But another thing that we have to think about is we're sitting all day. We go work out for an hour, and then we sit all day. That's not good either. So really mixing it up, and this is where I want to really try to make a difference in what I'm doing, because I move. You know, I have a rebounder, I might do different things, but I don't do it enough, and I know this. So doing CrossFit or whatever it is that I'm going to do, but then throughout the day mixing it up with going in and doing your squats or your high knees or whatever you can do throughout the day, so you're getting that movement in. I think that's really is probably optimal for hormone balance and for everything else, for weight management. So another thing that we really need to consider is stress management. And this is for, you know, really for everyone. You know, stress is going to increase cortisol. Cortisol is going, and so you know, there's this, what they call like this cortisol testosterone seesaw, right? Your cortisol goes up and your testosterone goes down, and vice versa. So the fact that so many of us are sitting in this fight or flight all the time, so we have our parasympathetic nervous system, which is what we call rest and digest, and we have our sympathetic, which is fight or flight. And so we should sit in parasympathetic most of the time, and then we go into fight or flight when something happens, right? We need that cortisol. We need that cortisol to stimulate whatever activity we have to do, whether it's run or lift or, you know, whatever the case may be. But what happens is cortisol goes from being anti-inflammatory. When it's in these short-term bursts, it's anti-inflammatory and it is building of muscle. Whereas if we are sitting where it's chronically elevated, then it becomes inflammatory and catabolic, which means it then breaks down muscle tissue. So if we are stressed, we're not producing testosterone, we're sitting a lot, we're gaining weight, we're breaking down muscle tissue, you know, it's just a recipe for, you know, a really nasty problem, right? So we have to mitigate stress levels. We have to put ourselves into, which is sad because we should naturally go into our parasympathetic or rest and digest, but we have to think about it these days. So whether that's prayer, meditation, sitting when you're eating, not eating on the run, so allowing your food to digest and be utilized, because if we're eating on the run and we're sitting in fight or flight, we're not breaking down and digesting our food. So then we become nutrient deficient, right? And so it goes with the, you know, that sort of that downward spiral of the things, all the things that can go wrong if we are constantly stressed and sitting in the sympathetic and our nervous system is completely out of whack. One of the big things from this conference that was sort of an overarching topic was, when we're working with clients and patients, is addressing the nervous system. You know, we've got this nervous system dysfunction, and it's sometimes it's hard to get out of it. And if we are constantly stressed and in fight or flight, we can't heal, right? The body doesn't work properly. So we have to address nervous system dysfunction first and foremost, and then we kind of go into all of the other things, you know, the things that come up on our labs and so forth. I think that another thing we have to make sure that we're looking at is our gut health. You know, the gut health is a real key to health or to dysfunction. And so a healthy microbiome is going to help us to detoxify properly. It's going to help us to produce our neurotransmitters properly, right? So 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. Our gut is 70% of our immune system. A little while ago, I was talking about short chain fatty acids. You know, short chain fatty acids are it's food that feeds our microbiome. It also then supports the lining of our gut. And so if our short chain fatty acids are low, then it's going to impact our gut, it's going to impact our microbiome, and it's going to impact our health. So that's one of the sort of the key things that I look for. And when I'm running a lab, a GI panel is where our short chain fatty acids. Let's look at the inflammatory markers. Let's look at how the pancreas is functioning, how the gallbladder is functioning, because all of these are going to play a role in a healthy microbiome. And is there dysbiosis, which is just an imbalance in the good and the bad bugs anyway. So we've got to manage this piece of it, because that plays a role in everything that we do. And so, I've seen some pretty crazy stuff in some of these GI panels. And what we have to know too is labs are not perfect. They're amazing. But I have had many occasions where the labs don't pick up certain pathogens. So they pick up bacteria really well. They don't pick up worms really well. And they can pick up pathogens well, but worms are a whole different story. And so I'm going to tell you that I have done these GI panels, and my clients have come to me and it's like, what is this that's coming out of me? And it wasn't picked up on a GI panel. So lots of stuff that can still play a role in health that may not come up on labs, but that's part of it. There are other markers that we can look at that kind of give us some indications, but it's fascinating stuff. I'm going to tell you, it's really scary, but really cool for sure. So things that we can do, of course, fermented foods. Going back to just eating good food, fermented foods are traditional, and there's so many great things that we can do with our vegetables. This is the time of year where, we're in our gardens. I've got a ton of beets. I've got all of these things that I'm pulling out, and I want to save them over the winter. So yeah, I can freeze them. I can also ferment them. And so if I'm fermenting them, it saves them, or it keeps them fresh-ish, but it also creates good, healthy bacteria that can feed our microbiome. And so all different types of foods that we can use, vegetables that we can use for fermenting, spices and herbs and beets and cabbage, pickles, right? Pickles are traditionally a fermented food. But if you're eating pickles that are made with vinegar, they're not fermented, so they're not going to have the good bacteria. So it's not about vinegar. It's about true traditional fermentation to preserve your food that creates that good bacteria. Okay, so we talked a bit about xenoestrogens, but I want to dig into that a little bit more, I think, because I run these panels where I'm looking at toxins that are coming out of people, right? So we can do what's called provoking, and so it is giving glutathione, it's going into a sauna, it's taking an Epsom salt bath before we take this, it's a urine test. So before we give a sample for this test, and it provokes and it starts to pull these toxins out of the tissues, so we have a better idea of what actually is coming out of the tissues and what we're holding on to. Most toxins are fat soluble, so they sit in the tissue. And if we're not detoxifying properly, which means we're not converting from a fat soluble toxin to a water soluble toxin, we're not eliminating it. So this is the role of the liver in part, right? But we have to make sure that it's all functioning properly so it's converted and then it's eliminated. It often's not happening, but the things that are coming out of people are these plastics, the heavy metals, the mercury. People are, eliminating mold. I mean, the amount of mold that I'm seeing in people these days is ridiculous. And it's really scary because we live in a place that we think is dry, but people are still impacted by mold, right? We might have a leak in the house. So I have a client right now. She thinks, not we, but after kind of going through and doing her panels, and she's still sick, and she's been working on this stuff for so long, and she's still not feeling well. Well, we did what we call a total tox on her, and her mold was sky high, like it was crazy high, and she couldn't figure it out. And her home was new, and so you can get these little petri dishes where you can test your mold all around your home. Well, she goes to church once a week, and what she started to realize was every time she leaves church, she feels bad. Heartbreaking, right? I mean, church is a big part of her life. It's a big part of a lot of people's lives. And so going to church, she would have to sometimes leave because the sanctuary they think is moldy. So that's a whole process that we're just sort of, right in the middle right now. But we have, we're peeling away the layers of the onion. And had we not done the testing and we not looked at what's going on with her oxidative stress levels were also sky high. You know, her age, which is not a real age, but it's showing she's like 99 because she's got so much insult impacting her body that it's just really creating, it's just a lot of stress for her, a lot of stress. And so now what are they going to do? They have to figure out whether it's another church or watching online, or, you know, is the church going to mitigate? I think we're still there. It's still a couple of weeks out before it's for sure if that's what the cause is. But we have to really think about it. You know, I've had people who would tell me, well, it's not my house. Well, it ends up being the school that they were working in or the office building that they were working in, right? It can be anywhere. I have someone who lives in California. I mean, this just happened a couple of days ago, where he's getting constant sinus infections and pneumonia and was hospitalized, and they couldn't figure out why and what was going on. And he had 3 inches of mold in a location in his home, and it's just circulating around the house. So if you're struggling and you can't figure out why, this is where we got to look at the toxins. We got to look at the mold. We've got to look at, you know, potentially the EMFs, right? The electromagnetic frequencies. Some people epigenetically have variants that predispose them to react and have more, where these EMFs have more of an impact on their body and can be really problematic. So there's a lot to look at, but the great thing is we have so many amazing labs that can give us so much good information. You know, talking about, you know, Vibrant is one of those. Vibrant, that was really cool for this conference that I went to. We got to tour their lab. Amazing what they can do. They're the top of the top, the certifications that they have. You know, there are those who believe that functional lab testing is woo-woo. Some of it's not great, but this is an organization that is on top of their game in every aspect, and they are amazing. So I'm really glad to be, you know, part of the little Vibrant family, I guess, where I use their products all the time. I use their labs all the time. It's good stuff. They even have skincare now based on your own genetics. I mean, this is the great thing about, you know, understanding epigenetics is we're in this place where we have the ability to truly individualize care, whether it's your skin care or your detoxification or your oxidative stress or your nutrition or your drug therapy, right? We have the ability to individualize for the person. And I just think it's fascinating. I'm super excited to see where things go. Okay, other xenoestrogens. So we got to think about plastics, pesticides, herbicides. The pesticides and the herbicides, you got to eat organic. You just have to. This is, we eat every day, and to not eat organic or even, I don't care if it's certified or organic, that makes no difference to me, but just free from the pesticides and the herbicides, it's so important. So know your farmers. If they are growing organically, again, don't care if it's certified, if you can grow your own food, but you got to eat food that's free of the pesticides and the herbicides as much as possible, because it is such a big deal. You can go to environmentalworkinggroup.org. It's actually ewg.org, and you can look at the foods that are highest and lowest in pesticides and herbicides. What you have to remember, though, is you can't wash pesticides and herbicides off. It's in the ground, which means in the root system, which means it's in every single cell of that plant and the fruits and vegetables that it produces. So we have to got to keep that in mind. There's some that are going to be lower than others, and EWG can help you understand what that looks like if that's what you need to do. But do the best you can to eat organic all the time, as often as possible. Let's see what else we want to talk about. Using glass containers. Never put plastic in a microwave. Never put plastic under hot water, right? This is going to leach plastic into our food. So think about that with your dogs. Think about that with your kids. These things are a really big deal. The amount of toxins that are coming out in umbilical cord blood it's disturbing. It's really disturbing. And so we want to protect them as much as we can. And then, of course, things that we can do is, eating, high antioxidant food, eating the fruits and vegetables that are high in these polyphenols that are antioxidants, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, all of these vegetables, they help with, they're aromatase inhibitors, but they also help with, with detoxification. Those are really good for us. So, green tea is great. Make sure it's not full of fluoride, because some of it is. Berries, these really colorful fruits and vegetables, beets, all the bright, brilliant colors are so important for our health. They tell you to eat the rainbow, and it sounds a little kitschy and silly, but it's true. It really is important for us to eat a broad spectrum of food, and of all different colors, because they all have a purpose. Okay, let's see what else. We are just about out of time anyway, but brain function. We talk a little bit about brain function. We did that a little bit last week, but testosterone for both men and women plays a big role in brain function. If testosterone is low, dopamine is low. And so we need men to have testosterone. We need men to have dopamine, right? Dopamine is that, helps you with mental clarity. It helps you with memory. It helps you with that motivation and the drive to go and to do and to be men, right? And so if we don't have enough testosterone, we're not going to have enough dopamine. We're not going to have good mood regulation. Right? You go back to, it's the depression, it's the frustration, it's the lack of motivation. And this is just, it's not, men, this is not what men are, right? So we got to, if you're feeling that way, there's a reason for it. You got to start to understand what that is and how to manage that and get back to getting all of those levels back in line. And again, all of the things that we talked about, it's adequate sleep, it's stress mitigation, it's good, healthy food, it's making sure you're breaking down your food and absorbing your nutrients. It is prayer time. Those are the things that are really important and lifting weights. So all of those things important for men, important for women, avoiding toxin exposure, and get help, right? Don't assume that it is life. Don't assume that it's age. Don't assume that it's bad luck. Don't assume that it's just genetics. All of these things they play a role, but they also can be mitigated and they can be optimized. And so finding someone who can help you to do all of those things, if you don't know how to do it on your own, right? We all need a team. One of my favorite things, which is the truth, is the things that I'm not good at, I ask people to help me with. And one of those is math and accounting, and I hate it, right? I'm a science nerd through and through, and I don't want to do my checkbook. I don't want to, balance my bank account and all this stuff, so I give it away. And I find my team of people who I trust who can help me do things. I have people who help me with this show. I have people who help me with my newsletter, because if I don't get help, I'm not going to get it done, and I'm not going to be optimized, right? And I can't do this. So we have to have our team who's there to help us, to guide us, to support us, to give us what it is that we don't have, because we don't all have everything, but we can find the people who can help us, and then we can hopefully do it all, or at least do as much as we can, which I think is what we're all here to do. So, all right. I think that's where we are. It's what we've got for today. Thank you. Hey, Tony, it's been a while. Hope you're well. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, if there's anything that you want me to talk about that you would like to hear, then let me know. I enjoy, kind of getting, as much goodness out into the world as I can. So you can find me, of course, here at kuhsdenver.com every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. You can find me at Taste Life Nutrition. That's the website. That is the all of the social media. You can also now find me at Immuno Wellness, which is our new wellness clinic in Cherry Creek here in Colorado, where we're doing both in-person as well as virtual sessions. This is an immunology clinic who I have partnered with to help grow their wellness center to, really to support the work that they're doing with their immunologist or their neurologist or, whomever it is that they're working for under this Veros umbrella. But it is supporting them in the lifestyle changes and the lifestyle modifications and all of these things. So the goal is, of course, to help people come off of the drugs, to feel better, to know what it is they can do on a daily basis when they're not able to see their doctor more than maybe 3 months at a time or something like that, or 3 months in between. So this is really where, I talk a lot about the conventional and the functional or the foundational, whatever you want to call it, coming together. I think it's really important. Conventional medicine's great at acute care, whereas functional medicine, functional nutrition, I truly believe is better at chronic care. And when you can bring those two things together, this is where we can really start to help people. Drugs have their place, but they're way overused. So what can we do to manage symptoms for today and then address lifestyle, address food, address all of these things that are the underlying factors, so then the body can do what it's supposed to do, what it's meant to do. It can do its job. This is what's really important. So anyway, this partnership is amazing, and I've got a partnership like this in a couple of different places. So it's really fun to be able to bring the two together and to help people to be their best. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, have a wonderful weekend, and we will catch you next week, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, streaming live here on KUHSdenver.com. See you later. Bye.